There's been a type of immersive RPG that has really blossomed recently. I already did one video about games like Morrowind and Kingsfield that I'll link to in the description, but there are actually a lot more of these games to talk about, and these are some of the games I picked out that were recommended in the comments that I thought were pretty great. So let's get started with Ardenfall. Ardenfall fits perfectly into this mold of games like Morrowind and Kingsfield, with the atmosphere that feels a bit otherworldly, the first-person combat and focus on exploration. The combat feels pretty solid, a bit quicker paced than a Kingsfield, but there are tells and animations that will allow you to react appropriately, whether you want to dodge, block, or interrupt them with your own attack. And there seems to be a good variety in the ways that you can approach combat, whether you'd like to sling magic, shoot arrows, or bash people in the heads with a giant sword. It has a lot of character customization, and the things that you choose will actually affect how you interact with the world. For example, choosing a certain background can change the choices that you have when interacting with various NPCs in the world. And developers have said that there will be a wide variety of characters to talk to, including different factions that you can join in order to do quests, which will affect the world again. There are a lot of lofty promises here for a world that is reactive to the things that you do, and I'm hoping that they can really come through and make that happen. As of right now, the game isn't released, but there is a demo you can play to get a feel for how Ardenfall will feel when it does release. Right now, there's no specific release date, but it has a release window of 2026. Flyknight is one of those games that you see on Steam, and you get a bit confused. It doesn't necessarily look like it should be great, and yet somehow it actually is. That's why it's sitting at overwhelmingly positive. Flyknight sits a bit more towards the Kingsfield end of the spectrum, focusing more on the moment-to-moment gameplay and a slower style of combat, and the gameplay itself feels a lot tighter than you would expect from these sorts of shaky models that you can see. You can aim to hit various body parts, even knocking them off, which will give you an opening as the enemy gets stunned. There's even a bit of a fishing minigame that is decently fun, if a bit bare bones. That's, I guess, where the problem is with Flyknight. Someone mentioned it in their Steam review. It does feel a bit more like a proof of concept. I guess it's a good thing if it leaves me wanting more though, and the price is decent for what you get at around $5 for 5 or so hours of game. Flyknight is out right now, so you can pick it up and you can play it, and it even has co-op, apparently, if you'd like to try it with a friend. Mohrta is an interesting one because it has some of the trappings of a game like Morrowind or Kingsfield, but it feels a bit more like Doom or something. That's because the gameplay is very quick-paced, and if you aren't on top of things, you will quickly die. Luckily, you aren't limited to just a melee weapon. You also have your trusty sidearm. But there are limited shots, so that there's actually a decent challenge here to be found. Of course, instead of a trusty flask like in Dark Souls, you eventually get your trusty doll, which pops out from underneath a dead person and squeaks its way into your inventory. The game's a bit weird, but it's actually quite a bit of fun once you get into the right mindset and let go of the fact that you're probably going to get killed pretty often. Luckily, there is a quick save function, so you aren't necessarily going to be doing the same thing over and over, and there are quite a few different kinds of places you can go to. The game is non-linear, so you can kind of do whatever you want. So, if a non-linear FPS sounds like your kind of thing, give Mohrta a shot. It's available right now on Steam. Monomyth might possibly be the best match for this combination of Morrowind and Kingsfield. The map that you go through gives me the same sorts of feelings that I got going through a dungeon in Morrowind, and it has the same sort of atmosphere as Kingsfield. The environment allows you to interact with it intuitively to progress forward, and the gameplay is just genuinely fun, giving you all sorts of different ways to build up your character as you level up. I do personally have more of a preference for the open spaces and vast world of Elder Scrolls, but for you dungeon crawler lovers out there, this game is exactly what you want to see. And honestly, it still managed to drag me in regardless of my preferences. Considering how solid the gameplay feels, I really hope that this developer continues to make games, and I would love to see this sort of combat but in an open world setting. And speaking of open, the Bloodline takes the open world aspects of Morrowind and the Elder Scrolls in general and expands on them in some fun ways. The skill system is very similar. Every time that you do something, you'll gain skill in that thing. So as you run, you gain running skill, jump, and you gain jump skill. It's a simple idea that feels nice, like you're constantly making progress in something. This world is super open right from the start, and there's so many different things that you can focus on. The starting hub gives you simple quests to complete, so you could focus on that to figure out how everything works, or you could just set off in a random direction and see what's out there. It also does some different things with movement, allowing you to scale walls either by climbing or with your trusty grappling hook, and quests will utilize that climbing ability, which adds a nice verticality to the game. You could build a village, become a mining god, or just run around collecting ingredients to become the best cook in town. So fans of sandbox RPGs will probably enjoy the Bloodline quite a bit. There are lots of opportunities to really get immersed here. The Bloodline is decently far along in early access on Steam, with updates being consistently added over time. Caput Mortum is weird, but I mean that in an endearing way. It leans a bit towards survival horror in gameplay and environments, but it also has some of that Kingsfield style to it. The entire game takes place in a single tower, and you spend your time clearing floors and descending lower and lower over time. It doesn't necessarily fit squarely into the RPG side of things, though it does feel a bit like one, especially because you can literally choose an option in the menus that is the Kingsfield control scheme option. I don't think it's really that important for it to be technically an RPG, because this is above all a fun and engaging game that I think fans of Kingsfield and Morrowind would appreciate. It definitely fits the immersive part of the title though, and part of that is in the way that you interact with objects. In order to interact with things, you have to move your hand over them manually in a way that feels intuitive and immersive. And that sort of thing may feel cumbersome and slow, but not in a way that is detrimental to your enjoyment. It's actually used to pull you into the experience. And when you're worried about something jumping out of the shadows at you, it forces you to engage with the game in interesting ways. And that is all 6 games for you. I hope that you found something here to enjoy. Like I said at the beginning, I have a whole second video with more games like this, so make sure to check that out in the description box. I love this kind of game, so I'm definitely going to be covering a ton of them in the future. So subscribe to my channel to see more great RPGs. Thanks for watching.